Askreddit, after watching the Joe Rogan podcast with Edward Snowden, how do you personally feel about him? Do you think what he did was right or wrong? Should we be awarding whistleblowers like himself? Whistleblowers are an asset and should be awarded and protected. Some of the highest level crimes have been within government agencies, and without a whistleblower they may have never been exposed. Some of the highest level crimes have been within government agencies. I think you're missing a key point there. The government specifically makes the laws so that what they're doing isn't a crime. That's the real issue. I think Snowden did a very brave public service for the United States. He exposed gross violations of the Constitution which were embraced at the highest levels of two branches of government. The remaining branch, which had the duty to verify that laws were being respected, lacked the access to do so. Millions of people were having their constitutional rights violated but could not even sue the government because the data that proved such abuse was happening was hidden beyond the reach of the justice system. And, of course, there is really no reason to use the past tense for any of this discussion. Did he break the law? Sure, but a guy who stops a mugging by shooting the mugger is potentially committing a crime. If the court were not allowed to be informed that a mugging was taking place and had to punish the Good Samaritan based solely on whether he shot another person, that would be a travesty. But that is exactly the scenario that Snowden would face in U.S. courts. The last safeguard of the Constitution when the government will not defend it is the people. We should throw Edward Snowden a parade. I admire the guy. It was a selfless act. He sacrificed his career for the betterment of American citizens. He needs to be pardoned. And Obama should have done it. It is one of the few things where he really disappointed me during his presidency. I feel like he got screwed for doing the right thing. As is generally the case. It's really hard for me to understand how anybody could be anti-Snowden. Perhaps the people he's blowing the whistle on. He did nothing but tell the truth. What bothers me more is how little Americans cared. So much this. But I think the American people responded the way they did because the media narrative was, this guy did an illegal thing that could compromise national security. Think of the children. People still know very little about the actual leak, what it means for their lives, or what national security is code for state authority. Don't base your opinion of Snowden solely on his interview with Rogan. Do some actual research on him. I've done some, but your comment made me curious. Any good resources to check out? I still like Joe. Joe did the right thing by giving Ed an interview. What's not to like? He has plenty of good podcasts. Like he was trying really hard to tell his life story as if it was interesting, but besides the fallout from his whistle blowing, he is very boring guy. His self-promoting and book plugging was just plain exhausting. He has to make a living somehow, seeing as he has been banished from his home country and all. What most people don't understand is there is an entire system to protect whistleblowers like him without making all the secret things he made public. I absolutely support him for bringing into light what the NSA was doing, but find him abhorrent for not doing it the proper way. Example is the current whistleblowers outing the White House. The president wants to tear these people down, but they have a protected status. And not even the president can touch them. Snowden would have had these same protections. Edit, typo edit 2, mind blown. Mr. Snowden was a contractor and not entitled to whistleblower status. So I stand corrected. There is some way for contractors to whistleblow. I'm going to ask around and get back to this post. Bullshit there is. It's like calling HR to file a complaint about your boss and then HR calls your boss to tell them you complained about them and so you get fired for performance, or some other bullshit excuse. It was, in my opinion, one of the best ways of handling the situation and the most patriotic thing to do. I fully agree with his definition of patriotism, acting in service of your people, even if that goes against the government. What he did took courage, and I hope we the people do our part to make his effort worthwhile, by holding our leaders accountable for this mess. One has not only a legal, but a moral responsibility to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. MLK. If the injustice is part of the necessary friction of the machine of government, let it go, let it go. Perchance it will wear smooth, certainly the machine will wear out, but if it is of such a nature that it requires you to be the agent of injustice to another, then I say, break the law. Let your life be a counter-friction to stop the machine. Henry David Thoreau. I'm a simple man, I see Thoreau, I upvote. Simplify, simplify. Never been against what Snowden did, but only thing I am concerned of is that he said he had the highest levels of access in the CIA, and if you think for a second he didn't get debriefed by the group FIS, you're living in dream. Yeah, I agree. I followed Snowden, albeit clearly not closely enough, for a while, but this is the first time I feel like I got an idea of how vast his access was. Part of me wants to think Russia was willing to harbor him as a fracku, but the more rational part of me believes he had to trade something. Edit. I still appreciate the information he brought forth. He's an American hero, the likes of the Founding Fathers, who themselves rebelled against a tyrant ruler in order to secure the rights of theirs and the people of this nation. Yeah, but dumping tea in the harbor is still illegal. So checkmate. I think taking the conversation out of the secret you can't talk about it area was invaluable. Breaking the law is breaking the law. A fair jury court with no excluded evidence or just cause would take care of that part. Snowden is charged under the Espionage Act, which is a strict liability crime. That means a jury is not allowed to consider whether what he did is right or wrong, or whether the government was committing crimes that warranted whistleblowing, only whether he did it or not. It also means that Snowden is not allowed to mention those justifications to the jury in court. Because of that, it's not possible for him to have a fair trial. He's a man who took on the biggest mob, and was treated exactly as you'd expect someone who takes them on to be treated. Or maybe you are wrong. A bit controversial for this thread, but I think the US should offer him some kind of deal where he returns, pleads guilty, and serves a very short sentence. A couple months? This respects the rule of law and the whistleblowing process while providing mercy to someone who was in a tough position. Edit. Too lazy to respond to everyone, but surely you can see this is an ideal resolution, not a realistic one. First of all, it's not realistic he'd ever get such a generous deal at this point in the US timeline. And probably die under mysterious circumstances in prison. Nice try FBI. Damn, you got downvoted for this? I figured conspiracy-guzzling Rogan fans would have been on board with you 100%. They enjoyed it so much when Rogan told Neil deGrasse Tyson that the moon landing was fake. I figured they were on board with the protect yourself from the FBI vibe. Rogan fans in private, the government is tracking all of US and psychedelics are the only way to free your mind and break the system of control. Rogan fans in public, hey. The FBI is pretty okay. How dare you? Wondering if anybody here read his book. I'd love to hear from some who have. He did the right thing. He also, rather than facing the laws he broke and going through due process as a whistleblower, first left the country, then allied himself with a country bent on bringing the US down from the inside. Everything he did after leaking things has make American less safe. Chelsea Manning did a similar thing, and faced the music. I have a lot more respect for Manning than I do for Snowden. Everything he did after leaking things has make American less safe. How so? Who is Joe? Joe Mama. When you reach a certain level of power, there is inevitably abuse of said power. Snowden abused what comparatively little power he had to expose the larger abuse of power of the government. It's not right, but it's not wrong. It's morally right for Snowden to do that, but ethically wrong to divulge information that you are sworn to protect. Yeah, agree with this 100%. I haven't seen it yet, but in this or any interview has he admitted what he had to give up to the Russians for amnesty? Guessing he probably sang like a canary. He says he gave them nothing. He prob didn't have to sing, 'cause Trump is doing it for him. Snowden is just another tool for Putin to show off. Why turn an NSA drone when you've got the POTUS in your pocket? Didn't his actions compromise undercover American agents abroad? Didn't some die? Didn't it also tip our hand to our adversaries, setting back our espionage and allowing others to catch up? You can say espionage is bad, but it's been a tool almost as long as kingdoms have existed. Also, I sometimes wonder if this huge information dump didn't somehow lead to Russia developing and implementing a lamentably successful misinformation campaign against the West. I don't know this to be the case, but I wonder. Does anyone have any insight into that? Didn't some die? Source. I'm pretty sure that didn't happen. Whistleblowers are an important safeguard in democracies. We have to have people who are willing to risk everything to expose the wrongdoing that we know governments are capable of. That being said, whistleblowers should expose things that are illegal or immoral and they should stand by that. The problem I had with Snowden is that he defected to Russia. More importantly, especially if you consider WikiLeaks and the Chelsea Manning situation, they made no attempt to sort through the thousands of documents to release only those that were relevant. Instead they just dumped them online without care. Exposing illegal massacres by U.S. troops or illegal spying on U.S. citizens is legit whistleblowing and I would have supported them then, but exposing the U.S. ambassador to KSA calling a prince stupid is just causing damage. States need secrets just like we have secrets in our relations with others. Whistleblowers are important and should be protected. But there is also an extremely fine line between treason and being a patriot. Just because you morally object to something, doesn't mean everyone else does, or that anything should be done to stop it, or that it's even wrong to begin with. For example, if you are an anti-vaxxer, you shouldn't release troops' personal vaccination records to support your anti-vax rhetoric. However, if it is found that instead of a vaccination, troops are being injected nefariously with some dangerous chemical test medication that is seriously detrimental to the health and wellness of our military, and troops are dying and it's being swept under the rug by leaders, you might find yourself on the opposite side of the law than the anti-vaxxer would be very wise for people in general, to find out why someone leaked the information, and what information was leaked to whom. All three of those things are extremely important in order to differentiate an act of terrorism, espionage, treason from protecting citizens. If the situation isn't handled extremely carefully, people could die depending on what you leak. I keep trying to read the comments but after a few seconds I get a server notice and ask to retry. I then reload the page and get another 5 to 10 seconds of viewing. Why is that? Internet blows. I am of the loop. What this all about? Rogan released his interview with Snowden yesterday, but didn't get the social media jump he was hoping for because of the SCIF break in dominating the news cycle. Now, Bent Pixels, the supremely shady company he pays to spam his bullshit and constantly change his YouTube optimization tags in real time so he can stay at the top of YT's recommended lists, is trying to regain some ground and engineer some organic growth by reposting shit about the interview ad nauseum on Reddit, Facebook, and IG today. They'd try on Twitter, but they failed yesterday with a baby trend of around 4,000 tweets when last I checked, and it's really hard to get the same thing to trend 2 days in a row. Before I give my opinion, I recommend Googling HPSCI's full report of Snowden. A decent amount is redacted, but it'll help give insight to it. If you don't believe it because it came from the government, then my post will be useless to you. I don't think we should award whistleblowers, protect them yes, but it's part of the job to report, so I don't think we should award them for it. Would you award every soldier for refusing to shoot at innocent civilians? I personally wouldn't because it's their job. I hate Snowden. If you didn't bother reading the first page of the report, it states he dumped 1.5 million documents, many of which had nothing to do with privacy concerns. Instead, they were related to military and defense operations. Some of that intel saved American lives, and on the converse, Americans could have been put in danger when that information was released. We'll never know if people died due to that because it's probably classified. So if he only released documents that pertain to privacy concerns, I wouldn't think he deserves to burn in hell, but he also released the other stuff. Add to the fact it stated he only contacted an NSA attorney for a question relating to precedence of policies and a CIA IG for a disagreement about training, retention of IT techs. Let's entertain option that the agencies covered up he tried to talk to legal. Then he should have gone to Congress or contact another IG. If everyone was trying to bury him, then he should have only released the documents pertaining to privacy concerns, not all 1.5 million. Just my 2 cents. He wasn't a whistleblower. Like him or hate him, he was a leaker. He didn't follow the prescribed process. Higher up in this thread they say BC he is a contractor, there is no path for him to be a whistleblower legally. Whatever it was, it's slightly less for him agreeing to do Rogan. Hey there Snowflake. Part of me wants to congratulate him for doing the right thing. Great power comes with great temptations, and even the strongest countries and men succumb to them, so we need people like him to keep us honest. OTOH he sold himself to Russia and is now a Russian shill, so much of that whistleblowing. To come on a show and pretend to be so moral and right when being on another country's, which conveniently is the biggest enemy of mankind, payroll is the definition of hypocrisy to me. Can you link to sources on the shilling? I've studied the issue pretty extensively and his whistleblowing aspect is suspect as all hell. He's credibly accused of massive unauthorized file collecting going back months before his publicized Eureka moment after he was reprimanded for failing to uphold S&P, not anything official said publicly. He exposed a perfectly legal and SOP program and either had no idea it was legal or intentionally misrepresented it, and has changed his story numerous times in the main. He also exposed impressive toolkits and methods that were being used exclusively against foreign targets. And oh yeah, he's alive and breathing in Moscow. Which totally happens for free. Dude is either an idiot or a hardened spy working for ego or cash. There really isn't any other choice. He exposed a perfectly legal and SOP program. Perhaps the problem is that it was legal. Legal equals right. As a proud boy I feel, he did the right thing. What chapter? No, I don't think he was wrong at all. But I also support our government overall. I'm in the minority for sure, but frankly, idgaff if the government knows what I'm doing. I know the government always does shady shit, black ops shit, morally questionable shit, etc. I'm not doing anything illegal and if some random NSA agent knows what I'm doing in my private life, I still don't really care. As long as it doesn't affect how I go about my daily life, the government can go ahead and waste resources on me. Man, you'd love WeChat in China. A legitimately super convenient service at the expense of ridiculous government surveillance at the micro and macro level. Most there don't mind the trade-off and it really is convenient as hell. I didn't need Snowden to tell me the gov spies on citizens. Kinda self-evident. President Bush passed the Patriot Act and then we elected him again. Like, what more proof do you need? Deleted. Said someone who has no clue what they're talking about. Whistleblowers like him that run away to adversarial nations and use the excuse that he'd be killed otherwise like he was living in a bad spy novel? No whistleblowers? Yes, they should be protected. Snowden was naive about the world and did what he thought was right the absolute wrong way. At least Manning didn't run like a coward. And you see how well they treated him. I think he's a libertarian whackjob that's certifiably insane thanks to the frequency of his psychedelic substance abuse. Wait, we're talking about what we think of Joe Rogan, right? I know that's all you're talking about in this thread. Please subscribe. Multiple videos uploaded daily.